hear from you, Amy, from you alone, saying what it takes to live in a free nation, the greatest nation on God's green earth, what it means to be an American. Go ahead, Amy. Tell us your story. Go ahead.
Absolutely, Mark. So my story started out in Vietnam. Of course, I am from Vietnam, a communist regime. My dad, when he was 11 years old, was in a fishing boat with my grandpa when the communists came into his village when they conquered 1969, conquer and tried to take over the villages, and they shot my grandpa 16 times in the heart while my dad was laying next to his lap, and he was spared, by the grace of God. And he vowed to himself that when he gets older, he's going to go to war to fight the communist regime. So when he was 16, he changed his age to 18 to go join the Americans to fight the communist regime. He got injured a couple times, sent home, married my mom. And that's when the communists basically took over in 1975, right? Mm-hmm. And then he flee with his wife, and, my mom was pregnant with my older sister, to the jungle. And that's where we live and try to, dodge the communists, because the communists know my dad helped, the Republic of Vietnam and the Americans to fight them. So that's how he tried to survive with his family in the jungle. And then his first attempt to escape Vietnam after the communists took over was not successful. He got captured and imprisoned for 6 months, and they tortured him, and as you can imagine what happened in prison. And then they released him to let him go home. And then a year and a half later, he told my mom, if we stay here, we will die in the hands of the communist regime. But if we escape, at least we will die a free man in the sea, free people. And before he left, he heard about a God, because, as you know, the religion in Vietnam is Buddhism and ancestor worshippers. Mm-hmm. And so he heard about God, and he said, God, if you're real, protect my family from Vietnam to America, and I will worship you. And so he hid us underneath his fishing boat. He was a fisherman. And my mom was 8 months pregnant with my sister, younger sister, my older sister, myself, and my 2 twin younger brothers underneath the fishing boat. Whatever food supply, whatever clothes we have on, we took with us, and water. And we head out in the sea. And in 3 days, we ran out of fresh water. And by the grace of God, the German oil tanker took us in and gave us water and then food, and then sent us over to Thailand refugee camps. And there we were, sleeping in condition that, is not very good. We're sleeping on the ground. Maggots were crawling everywhere. Bathroom, everything, food was spoiled, water was scarce, and not a lot. People were actually stabbing each other just to get food. So we stayed there for a year and a half, and then we try to seek asylum to come to America. Then they transfer us over to the Philippines for 6 months. And from there, they grant us asylum, and they flew us over to Huntington Beach, California, and surround us, or the Vietnamese community that share the gospel to us, that give us a hand, basically provide for our needs as we adjust in America here and share the gospel to us. And so that's how we became a Christian, our family, and that's how we got saved. And I am so grateful for America. I'm so grateful for the freedom that we have here, a freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to bear arms, not like Vietnam, a communist regime, or China, China communist regime, or North Korea, dictatorship, or Venezuela, a socialist country. As we look at those countries, we see the downfall of it, and the people. Basically, the people who are suffering, the suffering are belonging to the people, basically. The government get all the wealth. They don't suffer at all. They're the elites, right? It's the people who are suffering in those countries. And that's what socialism and that's what communism is. Lead to tyranny, dictatorship, control. And so that's why I'm so grateful for the liberty that we have here. And when I see the push for socialism with AOC, Omar, Bernie Sanders, Democrat, Joe Biden, all of them, and I go, hell no. I'm not going to go through that one more time. As we witness, women, children getting raped and thrown overboard on a fishing adventure to come to the land of the free. We've seen people starve to death back in a village, and getting buried alive, eating dead flesh to survive. I mean, we've seen all that. One-time witness of that, tyranny, horrid. We don't want that in America. One time is enough for a lifetime. So as I see the push for socialism, I wish I know will ultimately be tyranny, communism. So that's why I rise up and speak out on my story of how I escaped communism, and that as American, we need to open our eyes to see what's going on and see the season. The season. God tells us, in the Bible to always look at the season, see what's going on. As we know, winter comes, fall first, right? Winter comes, then spring will rise, right? Everything will bloom, summer be warmer. So that's why God is using the terminology of the weather, of the season, to help us, to relate to us, to help us to see the contrast. Look what's going on with Russia, with Afghanistan, Turkey, look with China, look what's going on, and see the timing that God is coming soon. Evil's here, but we have to stand up for what's right and fight. When God tells us to be putting our faith to action, right? It means that to be proactive. It's not to be sitting there and all we do is just pray. Prayer is amazing. God called us to pray, okay? Pray, but then also action. Because God says without faith it's impossible to please him, right? And then with that faith we took action. And it's like without faith, when we believe in Jesus, then we took the action to ask him in our heart, right? Mm-hmm. So it's the same way with everything. As I teach my kids, you believe certain things, you do certain things, but you believe something, then you took action upon it. So it's the same thing, and God called us to do that. So it's time that as we Christian, we need to pray with all we got, then we need to take action and fight for what's right. Mm-hmm. And God called us to be the beacon of light to this dark world. And that's what we need to do. How are the people going to know about the gospel? How are the people going to know the truth if we don't rise up and take action and do something about it and speak out on it? So we need to do that as Christians. It's no longer to be safe on the fence, to be passive about it. It's high time. It's high time that we stand up for what's right. We be that light that God calls us to be. And, of course, count the cost. Count the cost. That's what God tells us, count the cost. And then carry the cross and follow him. And carrying the cross, it doesn't mean that it's all, beautiful and happiness all the time. Count the cost. It means carrying the cross means the good and the bad involved in being a Christian and being a servant of Christ. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you have to make hard decisions, but you have to do what's right and what pleases God. And that's what God requires. God doesn't say, do what Mark is doing or do what Amy's doing. God says, give your best. That's all he requires of us, is giving our best, whatever we can do. And that's all he requires us, and that's all we're accountable for. So every one of us has a part in history, a part in changing our world and making a difference in 2020. And the first thing, of course, get involved, speak up, share your influence with your circle of friends. And then not only that, but vote. That's your right, and that's our responsibility. That's the least we can do to speak up and to have this freedom and to really put into action and use and be responsible about it, right? Mm-hmm. So we can do that. And then the next step, if God call you into politics, run. If God call you into something else, do it, because God has put in all of us a passion, a destiny, a purpose. And sometimes God put that burden in our heart for a reason, to stir us toward it. So everyone has a different burden, different passion, different purpose in life. But we have to listen to where God's leading us and taking a step of faith and go with it. And then God will open the next door. So we just have to go as He asks us to with step of faith. And then the rest is God. He has to do that for us. But back to the reason why America needs to, see the freedom that we have here and the freedom that we enjoy. And nothing is free. All the freedom we have that we enjoy here, it was shed with blood. Our veteran fight for to continue to preserve this freedom. Just Memorial Day weekend, just recently here a couple of days ago, that we celebrate that, our hero who fought to keep this freedom in this country. And we honor them, and we respect them, and we thank their family for their ultimate sacrifice. But you know what? I believe that those veterans that has, fought and give the ultimate sacrifice, they want us to continue this fight for freedom within our neighborhood, within our circle of influence, and to continue to preserve it. And so that is their one request, that we continue to do that for their family, our family, and, our livelihood here in America. So freedom is so vital. Liberty is so vital that we must fight at all costs.
Yeah, absolutely, Amy. You're absolutely right. I'm sorry, I got really emotional what you just told me. I'm sorry about this. Sorry about this, folks.
No problem.
I really am. With Amy, what she just told here, what her story of coming here, what it means to give up everything and to throw, basically, just gamble. You gamble your life is what you did, Amy. You gamble your life to freedom. You really did. You gave up the evilness of the regime you had in your own country. You threw that away, and you took a higher ground, but a higher pay calling to sacrifice freedom, to come here to be free. You did that.
Yeah, because you know what? If you think about it, those who escaped on a fishing boat, those refugees, basically out of 100%, 90% of them died. Just the 10 that survived.
Yeah.
So we are the lucky few. I guess I don't say lucky. God has a purpose. And we are so fortunate, to be able to come to America and escape, without facing death. Well, we did, in a way, if we've seen pirates, raping women and children thrown overboard, but we were spared by the grace of God, and it's just, the horrid of war and the horrid of evil. And you know what? There's a saying, I don't know who's it by, but evil prevail when great men and women stand by and do nothing. And ladies and gentlemen, my fellow Christian, my fellow patriots, if you hear my voice today, God is calling you to stand up, to fight and to do what's right. And, for such a time as this, you have a purpose. You have a meaning in life, and God has called you to that. And you know what? Like, God used all the hero in the Bible. As a Christian, we can talk about it, like the hero, Esther, Daniel, David, Joshua, all of them. I bet when God called them, even Moses, when God called them to a task, to a purpose, to a mission, I believe without a shadow of doubt that they were afraid. They were, oh my gosh, like, God, really? I have to do this, But they faced it. They come to a realization that this is God's calling. He's going to see them through, and He will give them the courage and the right words to say. And that's all we have to do. God is like, God is calling us in different ways. Like you in your ways, God's calling me in my different ways. But the thing is that we have to be obedient when God's calling us. For such a time as this, as we see the season, it's time that we rise up and count the cost. And you know what? Think about it. From my country, where I come from, you can lose your life, right? But here in America, it's not to that point yet. Maybe you can lose your job. You can lose your certificate. Maybe that's the best thing that happens, to us, losing our job so we can rebuild and maybe to a new direction. Maybe that's something God's calling us to do, and it's okay. And the thing is that it's okay. We have to come to that realization. It's not that bad. As Americans, time and time again, generation American, we have proven to rebuild ourselves, to reestablish ourselves, and we will do it one more time again here through this whole COVID incident. With the economy being, down because the Democrat is using this to take power and to control. And I'm so sick and tired of them doing this at the expense of the people, the American people. And you know what? With the COVID-19, the death, it's not compared to the suicidal death that the American Suicidal Hotline has reported. It's insane. People are losing their job to provide for the family. They're depressed. They can't, have a job. They can't, continue to do what they do anymore. The depression set in, the insecurity and everything. And they can't get their surgery, brain surgery or misdiagnosed of their cancer. I mean, it's because of this whole COVID fear-mongering. I call it a scamdemic. It's totally a scamdemic that the Democrat is using this for their political gain. And it's time that American people point this out and stand up and speak out on this. And we have the power. But the more of us rise up, that's when they fear us. And that's the same thing in communism, China and Vietnam. When the people rise up, they are afraid of the power of the people. So that's why they suppress the people, putting them in fear, putting them in submission. So therefore, they cannot rise up and overthrow the government. So our forefather created the Constitution for a reason. If the government gets so big and powerful that we can overthrow them. And right now, in our history, the government has never had this kind of power ever in American history. But now the governor has and other elected officials, and it is scary. That's where the people must rise up, and we have that power to overthrow the corruption, and we must do it. So it's time that we send that clear message to our government and let them know enough is enough. We're not going to have it. And we're going to be able to work and provide, and you're not going to find us. And especially in California, I'm rallying people to open their business on June 1st, okay, small business owner, because the government can't tell us, what to do and what not. Of course, we as Americans, we are cautious in nature already. And like, for example, the flu season, we already know if someone have a flu or a high fever, we stay home, right? And we, clean and, good hygiene, all those good jazz, right? Mm-hmm. Now with this whole COVID, we can still have that good hygiene, wipe the counter, being cautious and whatnot, and still provide for a family. So the government doesn't dictate how we make a living to provide for a family. So as June 1st comes, all business should open. And in California, the police are on our side, basically, for the Constitution and for the people. And they don't want to put people in jail. But if they do, just to say by the order of the governor, they don't have enough, place in the jail, the prison, to house us. And number two, the California law is the zero bailout. They have to let us out. So we're going to utilize this time and their corrupt laws for our advantage. And we're going to rise up. And they have to let us go. What are they going to do? Because with right now, they're letting go of prisoners. They're letting go of criminals, child abuser, human trafficking, all those high crime, out. And so we're going to do it. We are abiding citizens. We're not criminals. But if they do choose that route in the Democrat state of California, they're going to have to let us out, with a zero bail policy. So